Hey Rolf, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, good to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, just to get started, I'd love to learn a little bit about your journey in design.
Yeah, it's been a weird one, long and roundabout. Started in traditional design, and even before that, thought I was going to be an engineer. So you kind of never know which way the path is going to take you. Through that journey, I've encountered a lot of different verticals. So from fashion to fintech and digital out of home. So some non-conventional UX work.
Mhm.
um, and have seen so much change in that time. But the same guiding principles of both design and human-centric focus have stayed true throughout.
Nice, love it. And tell us a little bit about where you're at now.
I'm currently design director at a place called Fetch. It is an app if you don't yet have it. Highly recommend it. It's a great place to work, but it is a great app that is called Fetch because we believe in the idea of fetching value, of fetching rewards for our everyday users in doing things that they do every day. So be that shopping, playing games, we believe that you should be rewarded in doing those otherwise, everyday activities.
Yeah, not to turn this into like a marketing chat, but like I think it's interesting because third-party cookies are going away. Everyone's invested in first-party data. Customers are more conscious now about, hey, my data's everywhere, right? Is that part of like the strategy where it's like, hey, we can actually give you something for this data?
Yeah, entirely. We think that users are readily sharing stuff all the time. And at what cost? So when you think about the leaks and the hacks and all of that stuff that have transpired in recent memory, and how invasive that was and how bad that made people feel. Fetch definitely respects a bit of that privacy that Apple does as well. And we know that we're an opt-in service. We are a free service, but the idea of sharing the data that's on a receipt generally is something that no one would think twice about. They think, hey, I don't have my name on this receipt. I don't have any meaningful information on this receipt that someone could steal. So often people will crumple them up, throw them in the trash. That is getting you zero value. So what Fetch is great at is synthesizing the information from a receipt once you take a picture of it and making that make sense to partners in a way that previously they weren't able to do so with attribution through like Meta or Google. They kind of take credit for just seeing a thing, whereas we have the end-to-end life cycle of someone saw a thing, an offer within our system, someone purchased the offer, or regardless of where they saw it, they purchased it, and because they're opt-in at Fetch, they can get credit for it.
Yeah, I like the Apple comparison because I feel like that's a company that's turned privacy into like a huge revenue driver. I want to switch gears to mentorship. I know you're big on that. Tell me like what it takes to be an effective mentor and why is it important?
Yeah, mentorship is something that I will put above almost anything else. I will say no to other social engagements to be able to engage with a younger or just uh, maybe less experienced designer because it is something that I myself didn't necessarily see a lot of coming
Yeah.
up, and I feel this intrinsic need to really pay it forward. There were a lot of opportunities in which I was inspired by extremely talented designers, illustrators, creatives throughout my early career. And, what I would give to have gotten like more concentrated time with those people, I think would have even boosted my capacity, my capabilities as they were today, as well as just like my whole career trajectory. So I believe that there's a lot of really important kind of intangibles that you get from a connection with somebody who's experienced things. And granted, you only get their perspective, but their perspective could have some true validities that you will inevitably encounter, or at least something where you can say, okay, here's one side of the coin. Let me seek
Yeah.
out the other side and get holistic pictures and better prepare you for what's coming your way with a career in design.
Is that something you think like how do you instill that into like day-to-day leadership, like for leading a UX team or a research team?
Um, that's a great question. I think the day-to-day aspects of it would go into listening to your unique reports or your unique peers, even understanding their situations, how they're coming at problems. So leading by listening first and really hearing what their pain points are and treating your interactions as like mini UX problems. And just doing what you can to improve their experience. It's different. You're designing a career path versus designing a digital experience. But I think like just from a mentorship perspective, treating things in the way that you're an expert in does everyone a bit of good, unless they're just looking to vent or express themselves, in which case you've led with listening.
Yeah, true. And how do you hire for people that are receptive to that? I think for better or for worse, there's some designers out there that aren't receptive to feedback, or maybe they're just like super introverted and like really, you know, feel vulnerable when their work shown or criticized or scrutinized.
Yeah, I find that studying human, being a keen observer of human nature is a huge part of what we do. And I think that introversion, while that may put a bit of a barrier between how successful someone might see them in a whiteboard session or something like that, on the spot interactions, that might put a little bit of a damper on how their success is seen. But I think if you know that that is a possibility of someone's propensities, in their main interaction, getting them to open up and get into a comfort level and truly show what they're capable of, I think is a number one, like what you should be striving for and not
True.
just write somebody off immediately. The second aspect of how to detect that someone is what I say humble and hungry, who is coachable, somebody who wants to learn, is that they will come prepared with more questions than you have for them. They will ask you a lot of questions and they may have more that you don't have time for. To me that shows a level of just willingness to learn and want to learn, and that they don't already think that they're the most intelligent person in the room. That is huge, and definitely a checkbox for like, is this person coachable? Will they be a joy to work with? Like most of the time, yeah, because they're incredibly curious, and we as designers have to be in order to get to the best solutions.
Yeah, 100%. What advice do you have for designers entering the field today in definitely a difficult landscape?
Yeah, I would say it goes back to kind of both the things that I mentioned, is seek out a mentor. Go and talk to somebody who has experienced some. I'm not saying you need to find somebody with, 20 years of experience. But there are opportunities to network in your local environs. So whatever major metro you're in, seek out a meetup group or look on LinkedIn, see if there are groups there. There's also a great site, ADP list, which stands for Awesome Design People list. Like it's got a crazy amount of talent there from a lot of different verticals too, like both verticals and UX concentrations. So if you want to talk to a researcher, you can talk to a researcher. You want to talk to a designer, you can talk to a designer, product management, all of the above. So it's not hard to find someone, especially with technology. It's not hard to find somebody to talk to and just ask them questions. Remain humble, remain hungry, ask them as many questions as you possibly can. And I guarantee that you'll get more out of 30 minutes, an hour of their time than you will in Googling to no end, asking
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Like that stuff is not as tangible or applicable to real world scenarios than just talking to a professional with obviously some level of understanding. You have to go in with some baseline of like, okay, I know what UX is at least. It helps if you have education or some project under your belt, but that mentorship and that attitude will get you so far.
Well, Rolf, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sure.